Welcome back. I'm Marc. I've been a professional artist for over 20 years and now I teach art for a living. And here's something I see all the time. You finish a really nice sketch, you're proud of it, and then you start coloring and within like 10 minutes, the whole thing is way worse than when it started, when it was just a sketch. So if that's ever happened to you, you'll want to keep watching. Coloring really is a chain of decisions. And if you have just one mistake in that chain, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And today, well, I'm gonna walk you through the whole chain. We'll cover why a lighting should be the foundation of your coloring, how to check your values so that your colors actually read, how to pick colors that work together using like mood and color harmonies. And at the end, I'll give you my exact 5-step process so that you'll have the full blueprint to start getting much better results. So let's get into it. So I want to start with the single biggest thing that improved my coloring immensely. Because if you only take one thing away from this video, well, it should be this. I used to color the traditional way, like many of you probably do as well, right? So you kind of build up, starting from light colors and going darker and darker until you're done, basically. Or in other words, by adding shadows. And it was really during my time working at Blizzard Entertainment, like almost 10 years ago, where I adopted a different method. Basically doing the complete opposite. So I would start with darker colors and then add the light on top. As if I was like literally turning a light switch on, click. Because if you think about it, like everything in the real world works this way as well. Everything is visible because there's light. No light, no colors, no nothing. So I think it makes perfect sense to treat it as the star of the show. And the shadows will just kind of end up being where the light doesn't reach. And here's why I think this matters so much. Light is an eye magnet. Like wherever the light goes, your gaze follows. We're hardwired for this. So when you paint with light, you're basically placing a spotlight wherever you want the viewer to look at. Just like a, stage spotlight will work at a concert. Where with the old approach where you start light and then you start adding shadows, you're basically trying to like remove attention from different places, essentially completely working backwards. And there's also like a huge practical benefit. Like when your lighting is deliberate, you really don't need to render every corner of your painting or your drawing. Because most people will actually sort of ignore what's in the shadows when there's a bright spotlight, pulling their attention somewhere else. So in a way, this means that you can paint less and still have a more impactful piece. Less work, better outcome. Hell yeah. And personally, I think this approach is way easier too, just technically speaking. So that's a nice bonus. Now here's a quick step that should take you no longer than 5 seconds and it'll save you from possibly the most common coloring mistake. So before you finalize anything, before you call your piece done, do this one thing. On top of your stack of layers, like add a black layer set to the saturation blend mode so that you'll see your piece in black and white. There are other ways to do it, obviously, but this one works great because you can just toggle the layer on and off. But yeah, the whole point is to check if the piece still reads when it's in black and white. Like, can you clearly tell where the focal point is? Can you tell where the light is coming from? Like, is there enough contrast between maybe the characters in the foreground and the background so that they don't feel like they're meshing, like merging together? Because if it looks like a muddy mess in grayscale, well, no amount of color is gonna save that. Colors right on top of values. Like strong values can actually make not so good colors look actually pretty good. But weak values will always drag down like the best color palette in the world. Values make or break your art. Now, this is a good time to mention that everything I'm covering in this video, like the lighting approach, the value structure, color theory, all of that is covered in great depth in my complete art education program, YTartschool for Digital Artists, the sponsor of this video. The program actually contains a full university curriculum, so going through everything you would possibly need to learn as an artist to have the strongest foundation possible and hopefully allow you to draw anything your mind can imagine. The full program comes with assignments, exercises, a week-by-week study guide so you always know if you're on track and what you should be doing next. We have also an amazing Discord community of thousands of artists all sharing the same goal of taking their art to the next level. You should definitely check it out with the link down in the video description. And by the way, the big spring sale is almost over, so it'll be done at the end of the month only, so there's a couple more days left. Don't miss out. And for existing students, I also just released the complete French subtitles for the whole program and Spanish subtitles as well, with more languages coming soon. And if you're a student, you already know that you get lifetime access and free access to all future updates and additions. No subscription nonsense. Now, let's talk about color choices. So your lighting is solid. Your values look pretty good in black and white. Now, it's time to actually pick colors. So unlike what most people do, which is going to be just to select random colors and hope for the best, there's of course a better way. And it starts with this. Ask yourself this question. What feeling do you want your drawing to communicate? Now, I know this sounds like a vague and artsy, but it's actually really practical because it'll immediately kind of narrow down your options. Like if the mood is supposed to be like aggressive or violent, well, maybe you'll want to reach for colors that are warmer, so like oranges, reds. But if it's more of a sadder piece, like something a little bit more depressing, well, you're gonna reach for cooler colors, like maybe blues, desaturated purples, colors that basically match the mood that you're going for, because there's such a thing as color psychology. Like different colors make us feel different ways. So one way to easily visualize that maybe would be to take like a really bad villain in a movie or in a series and take the same outfit that he's wearing, but replace the colors for pastel colors. Try to picture that. Not so intimidating anymore. And in this case, the colors are just fighting the message. Obviously, you want them to be working together. So do you want your piece to feel like a little bit warmer, cooler, something bright, something moody? That one tiny decision will save you like 80% of all the troubles you would possibly run into before you even open the color picker. So once you have your color temperature of choice, right? So warm, cool colors, depending on the kind of mood you're going for, you still need to figure out which is the lead. You can think of your colors as like cast in a movie. You're typically going to have a lead actor with a supporting cast of like varying importance. Well, in this case, like an easy way to approach this is to consider your lead color as the most saturated color of the bunch. And also it usually lives around your focal point. Saturation is just really interesting for the eye, so we tend to look at saturated colors more. Now, obviously, it's a rule that can totally be broken if you know what you're doing, but going about it this way is almost guaranteed to generate great results every time. So let's say the face of your character is your focal point, which it typically is. Well, then you would want to have the most saturated color found somewhere around this area to bring the attention to it. While everything else is gonna get more muted colors in comparison, more desaturated. So as a result, pulling less attention. Like a really common mistake I see is having the clothes and the background of your piece way more saturated than anything you find around the face. Now your eye is gonna go there instead of the face, which is likely not what you had in mind for the focal point. Certainly not what I had in mind. So this is much better, I think. Don't you agree? Yes.
Yes, you do.
And now, to tie all of this together, you'll want to use a color harmony. Now, I know a lot of you know about color harmonies already, and you just went, I know what he's gonna talk about. But hear me out, because knowing about color harmonies only half the battle. Like a complementary color harmony, for example, will have you take one color from each opposite end of the chromatic circle. But now if you take those two colors and use them like at full saturation in equal parts in your drawing, well, it's going to look terrible. What's going on here? Well, the idea here is that the color harmony only gives you the ingredients, but not the full recipe. The recipe is actually what we just covered. So how bright, how saturated, how much to use of each color, and of course, where to place them. So if all of this is a little bit overwhelming, well, just keep it simple. One dominant color, typically warm and saturated around your focal point to bring attention to it. And then one supporting color, which is going to be usually cooler and much less saturated kind of everywhere else. And that alone will take you surprisingly far. You can, of course, get fancier with like split complementary color harmonies, triadic color harmonies, and all that, but the principle is always the same. One color leads, the rest supports. You adjust saturation to control attention, and the values usually do the heavy lifting. All right, now here's what I promised at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, the full process. And the reason I saved it for last is that basically everything we just talked about is baked right into it. Each step exists for a reason, and now I think you'll be able to easily figure out why. So step one is your flat colors. So you'll block in your base colors. This is a relatively fast step. Don't overthink it. Just make sure that your dominant color and color harmonies are in place, sort of, but you can always come back to this later to change them if needed. Like nothing here is locked in. Now on step two, we're going to be working on the shading. So we'll want a multiply layer So you can use colors here to multiply on top of your flat colors, but I usually paint with black and then I tint the colors like later in the process once I'm basically done. I find that that works a little bit easier. So at this point for your shading, you should have some sort of an idea of where the light is coming from, like what your lighting setup is going to be. But if you don't, it's not super important because like I said before, the lighting step is going to change a whole lot of things. So in step 2, just shade away, do as best as you can so that your painting or your drawing looks great in grayscale. And I will say, typically, this is the step that takes the longest. So once you're done, you're ready to move on to the lighting, which is going to be step 3. And this is where everything comes together. So on a new layer, you'll paint your lights. Think like a spotlight, where is the light coming from and what does it hit? And I typically use an overlay or hard light blend mode when I paint my own lighting. And now the final step, well, we're working on the material highlights. And that's gonna be the finishing touch. So there's only really 4 different steps in this method. So now you'll want to go over everything and add reflections and highlights, based on the materials you're working with. So like metals will get sharp, bright reflections. Skin will get a subtle gloss. Fabrics will get almost nothing. Hair maybe will get like a nice little shine. And really, this is the layer that makes everything feel like it's made of something real. Without it, everything kind of looks like the same flat surface. Now this layer, I'll place it on top of everything that I have so far, set the layer blend mode to hard light, and paint away until I'm satisfied. So 4 steps, same order every single time: base color, shading, lighting, highlights. So lighting, values, color choices, all of those things matter, but having a locked-in process will turn those individual skills into like a full-on method, delivering consistent results. So I hope that was helpful. Actually, I made a full class going over the same process here, but in much more detail. So if that was a little too fast for you, well, I highly recommend it. Check out the next class here that will pop on screen in just a second, going over the same 4-step method, one of my favorite. So I'll see you over there. Click it, bro.